Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the user groups. Thanks, everybody, for attending today. Obviously, some unusual circumstances. We're trying to embrace technology to get on with business as much as possible. And really, it is a good time to use this opportunity to look at the business and what can be done to work on the business. Easy to say, I understand, but we'll carry on with our presentation today. So welcome, thanks to everybody. The user group today is sponsored by both Enprise and Kilimanjaro. The whole intention really is for these user groups is for us to provide you with information about the product and also create a bit of community around and between users. We do have a LinkedIn user group where you can communicate with other people who attend these things as well. So if you are not a member of that, please feel free to drop us a message and we'll make sure you are added to that user group. We're also a special welcome to MYOB. We have a very close arrangement with MYOB, and they will they also want to be engaged with you, our customers, and they'll be presenting today as well. And I'll hand over to Ronnie Baskind, who's the CEO of Kilimanjaro and now Enprise, but he'll tell you a little bit more about that. And we'll hand over to you, Ronnie.
Well, thank you, Chris, for the welcome. And as you said, a bit of a challenge for us doing our first virtual user group. I just grab my clicker over there. There we go. So I think I just wanted to start off by continuing from what Chris said, coronavirus edition. Just to let you know that our primary concern, I guess, in circumstances like this, our primary concern is to each other as human beings. But our secondary concern then, which is very important to us, is to ensure that for our clients, there's continuity of business. So rest assured that we've got a large team of people. They're used to working remotely. Our offices are at this stage still open because we haven't had any actual positive tests. But we are able to continue to give you services remotely. In terms of what Chris said, just to let you know that Kilimanjaro and Enprise have merged in totality. So we now have the largest and most experienced MYOB Exo team in Australia and New Zealand. We are MYOB's largest enterprise partner. We've got a team of over 120 professionals, and we can service businesses from the smallest to the largest. What we're talking about today is the connected business and an empowered workforce. That's the theme of today's user group. And some of you might have seen this slide before, where we're talking about a typical business, probably at your stage of evolution, where you've got your financial management system in the middle over there, and you've got all of your peripheral systems, be it your CRM, be it your mobile workforce, be it your inventory, warehouse management on the outside, and you've got multiple sources of data entry, you've got many different pieces of software. And what you want to do is to try and move that business to what we call a connected business, which gives you essentially a single source of truth. So we're going to look at what do we need to do to get to be a connected business. And the first lesson that we see from dealing with our clients is that there are no silver bullets. It's not a simple thing. It's not a simple solution. It's not a one-liner that we can say to you, this is how you become a connected business. It's actually a journey. Because growth in your business is not linear. Growth, you go through phases, your business grows, you'll reach some sort of a platform, some sort of a constraint to growth. You will then have to come up with strategies and plans and processes to overcome that. And those constraints, in our case, as your partner, is a technical constraint. And what you then need to do is remove the very next obstacle to profitability or growth, or in these difficult times, you might go back and say, well, my obstacle at the moment is that my workforce cannot work remotely, and that becomes your obstacle. In those cases, talk to us and we can see what we can do. Also to note that as a business grows, your requirements change. So if you look at a sort of a progression of a normal business, you'll see you might start off on something like BankLink or Xero, and then you'll work your way up on software, which is essentially off-the-shelf or downloadable software. It's not configurable software. And then when you reach one of these ceilings of growth, you reach a point where you can't manage with pre-configured software, and you start saying, my systems need to be different to my competitor systems because I am doing my work and my processes differently. So you then reach what we call the transition zone, and that's the point where you start looking at configurable software. And again, as I said, it's not linear. It looks more or less like that. In terms of the road to a connected business, a business starts off small. You have some sort of a business idea. You develop your strategy. You develop your business plan. You put your processes and systems in place. And I would imagine that most of the businesses we're talking to today are at this point where you're looking at putting processes and systems in place. And that's where you are along the journey. Once you've put your processes and systems in place and you've embedded them in your technology, you can start looking at business process improvement, connected services, mobility, and how you can actually start using technology to improve. And then the next step is to leverage off the insights into your data, have the single source of truth, this real-time data, and looking at external data and how you can use that. And then the final step obviously goes into looking at big data and artificial intelligence, which at this stage for most people would be quite a distance away. So this is where we feel most of the people we're talking to today are at the business, at the position where you should be looking at business process improvement and saying, how can I use technology to improve my processes? You'll see over there we're talking about mobility. Mobility becomes very, very important in these trying times so that people can actually work remotely. The other thing to note is that process transformation must come before digital transformation. So process transformation is understanding your internal processes, your internal systems, locking down the way you do things, and then incorporating that into your ERP system. I'm going to talk very briefly about 8 trends in 2020, and I must say that in presenting this, I'm very aware that we're in a very fluid situation and things are changing, and it's hard to be futuristic when you don't know what's going to happen next week, never mind next year or the year after. But these 8 trends are really longer term trends and are coming at us like a steam train, and are worth taking note of. So when we get through this coronavirus crisis, and we get back to a new normality, these are the things that will be impacting on your business. So there are 8 of them. Best of breed integrations and APIs. I'll go through these one by one and give you some examples in a moment. Mobility, 5G, which you're starting to see being advertised now by Telstra. Continued growth in omni-channel marketing. More ways to pay. Big data insights, the Internet of Things, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and augmented reality. Okay, so if I go through those one by one, and I start off then with the best of breed and integrations, these are all products that are already integrated into your Exo system. The integrations are being built, many people are using them, and you can see that if you have a problem, it is likely that someone else has had a similar problem and has come to us and said, can you build integration? So our SAMAX team, our strategic account management and connected services teams, can talk to you about these solutions. Some of them simple, for example, Easy Collect as a data management system or Focus as a BI tool. Some of them much more complicated, like integration into NetStock, etc., etc. But these are available there and now for you. The next trend is 5G. 5G is going to impact on us because what you're going to get is you're going to get the speed of transfer of data. There's very little latency, almost no latency. So you can get real-time communication. And if you look at those 2 images there, you could see that you could in fact control something like traffic, where you can reduce the distance between motor vehicles to whatever, 10 centimeters, 2 centimeters. Doesn't really matter. But it's real time, and that's the big issue. also connect a lot more devices at once. The next trend I spoke about was growth in e-commerce. These are retail numbers, not wholesale numbers. Most of you would be in business to business. Some of you may have some retail. So if you look at that from where we are now at 2020, 4.2 billion in sales, this is the US, you can see that that trend continues, and this is almost, the trend there is almost as aggressive as the coronavirus. It just keeps going up and up, and there's no difference between retail and B2B. So B2B e-commerce sales are increasing, and we talk about an omni-channel environment because you can't ignore the other channels. So if you look at the little arrows I've put on there on the screen, you can see that website sales are still increasing, whereas phone is decreasing significantly, email is decreasing significantly, fax has all but disappeared, and you will start seeing these other environments, mobile order taking, etc. You'll start seeing that increasing exponentially. The other trend is to look at more ways to pay. So in terms of more ways to pay, again, I've put some arrows over there. So you can see that checks, so checks, that's the American spelling of checks. But as you know, checks, we probably as a business, Kilimanjaro Enterprise, we just don't receive checks anymore, and that's disappeared in the last 2 years. If you look at credit cards have become prolific for B2B payments. If you look over there at mobile wallets and things like Amazon, that is starting to grow, where you can go online and you can purchase something with some individual unique identifying number. The banks are doing this with fast transactions, where somebody's mobile number becomes the number you use to transfer money between accounts. And then other ways of paying, which are growing, for example, the Pay Now button on the bottom of an invoice, which we can put onto you for your Exo invoices, together with IntegraPay or whatever payment gateway you're using, where somebody can go click on the Pay Now button, select which invoices they want to pay, press the button, the money is in the creditor's account and out of the debtor's account instantly. There are also some other ways to pay that are emerging, where there is a form of debtor finance that's emerging there, where the debtor can pay you, but not with their own money. And these are changes that are happening now in the ERP world. The next one is big data, AI, and machine learning. And I'm going to give you an example of that in a moment, just before I finish up. So we're going to skip over that one for now. We'll get to it. And again, this is just the lesson that unless your fundamentals are in place, unless you have your strategy, your business plan, your budgets, your processes in place, these technologies are not going to be the silver bullet that helps you in your business. You still have to get the fundamentals right first. The next one is the Internet of Things. So this is becoming quite prolific, and the Internet of Things, together with artificial intelligence, will be able to do things like, for example, when somebody rings your doorbell, it will then be able to recognize who that person is and pop up with a profile of them on your screen inside your house before you have even got up from your chair. This is just an example of shipping containers that are being tracked in real time. And then the next one is the augmented reality, which is in fact the last one, where I had prepared these slides at the start of our user groups, which is about 2 months ago, and the augmented reality, where you could upload a picture of your room, and you could then take a piece of furniture and see it in your own room. And I looked at this and I thought, well, that's, I don't know how far away that is. So in actual fact, this morning, this was a photograph that I took in our kitchen this morning of the table in our kitchen with a cup on it. Can anybody see anything there other than a table and a cup and a picture in the background and the top of 2 chairs? What we then did, this is Stephen's iPhone this morning with a piece of software on it that Apple has just released because their stores are closed. So we can now see the Apple computer in situ. So in other words, if you look at the phone I mean, this just blows your mind. It's unbelievable. And in fact, even more so than that, as Stephen walked around the table, with his holding his phone there, you could actually see the back of the computer. That computer is virtual reality. It's not on the table, but it's on there. It just blows my mind. Absolutely amazing. And you can see your mind can start to wonder to what other applications there are for this sort of technology. So the easy wins for you on the road to connected business, as I said, all of these sorts of connected services that are already there, their mobility solutions, certainly things that can help you in this difficult environment in working remotely as well, getting your stock levels sorted, companies that need to know how much toilet paper to stock for the following three hours, net stock, those sort of things. And then this is my example of how big data and AI is actually permeated into our systems today. Easy Connect, which is a data management system where you set up a workflow. What you can do is, first of all, when you issue credit to a new debtor, you can then wash that through data that's provided by Ilion, used to be done in Bradstreet. It'll tell you what the risk is of this particular debtor. So that's the first thing that happens. And the second thing that happens is that as that person starts trading with you, you can start getting data insights, so you know whether there are any adverse findings against a particular debtor. You can even know whether that debtor is paying their other creditors on time and not paying you on time. So in this example over here, I've got a debtor with an overdue amount of 11,000. It's showing me a risk level that is high, and it's actually, with an artificial intelligence engine, is giving me some suggestions as to how I deal with that debtor. Whereas another one down here, which is also a higher risk, the suggestion is somewhat different, because the system has identified that this debtor is paying their other creditors on time, but they're not paying you on time, so there's a potential relationship issue. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for attending. I hope that at the other end of this virtual user group, you're able to at least glean some useful information. And I am going to hand back to Chris now, as the moderator, to introduce us to our next session. Wishing you all really the best in getting through this crisis. And if there's anything that we as Kilimanjaro Enterprise can do to help you, if you're struggling to use the technology, please don't hesitate to contact us. We are used to working remotely. And if you're having difficulty, or your employees are having difficulty, don't hesitate to call our help desk, and we can help you with various tools and things. Thank you. Thanks, Chris.